Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third podcast for KopThis. This particular podcast is going to be reviewing our draw earlier on today, Everton versus Liverpool. Obviously, I did 0-0. Big Merseyside derby. It didn't exactly live up to the hype and the expectations, probably that I think a lot of us were expecting. To sort of kind of kick it off, I think I'll just say personally, that I thought it was very, very disappointing. Nothing went right for us all afternoon. We seemed to lack an awful lot of creativity. And unfortunately, this does seem to be quite a common theme since the turn of the year, since the beginning of January, particularly in away performances. We seem to be struggling to create an awful lot of clear-cut chances. I mean, there was one or two this afternoon, particularly for Mo Salah, but he didn't make the most of those. And I think that Salah's form, in particular at this moment in time, is quite a concern, really. I don't really sort of understand why he wasn't taken off. I probably personally would have taken him off today. He had a really off day. He had a similar performance at Old Trafford against United, and obviously Salah is always seen as our go-to man, and obviously he's scored some fantastic goals for us. He very much is the linchpin of our attack, but at this moment in time his form has either deserted him or he's just not able to do it in the big games so far this season. So that's a bit of a concern. I think should we basically look at first and foremost sort of man of the match for this afternoon?
Yeah.
Okay, so personally, my man of the match would be Virgil van Dijk. Absolute colossus yet again. There's nothing really that I can add that hasn't already been said about big Van Dijk. He's absolutely fantastic. He had another terrific performance, winning everything in the air. The one thing that we don't look like doing is conceding goals, which I think again going to the beginning of the year, obviously the turn of the year, with a lot of defensive injuries, we were shipping quite a few goals. But obviously now that we've got a relatively settled back four again, minus Gomez, of course, we again no longer sort of look like conceding goals. The problem is now up the other end. But yeah, my man of the match would be Virgil van Dijk. What about you?
I'd definitely agree on that. I seen at the end of the game when he actually received the man of the match performance, but he didn't seem happy about it, and I personally, I just felt so sad for him because you could see him during the game. He was absolutely furious with everyone.
It was
Robbo.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, it just
Yeah,
wasn't.
it was. No, I would totally agree with you. Totally agree with you there. Funnily enough, one of the quotes that he sort of said when when he came off and he gave his post-match press conference himself, he said, didn't he, that Everton appeared very, very happy with the 0-0 draw. They were sort of celebrating the 0-0 draw, and it sort of shows the levels. It shows where they are. The fact that they were so happy with the 0-0 draw. And obviously, clearly, Van Dijk wasn't. Obviously, he was visibly upset by obviously the 0-0 draw. And like you say, he certainly had a bit of a go at one or two players this afternoon.
Yeah, and it was just what I was like baffled by was one thing was Mane being taken off. I have no idea what Klopp was thinking there, but it's part of creativity, and we can argue whether it was the summer or whether it was just so much. But I don't see why Shaqiri wasn't brought on either earlier or just that last 10 minutes when Lallana came on. But I'd just like to say Milner was absolutely shocking. Like,
It was. It was. Do you know what's funny? I was going to say, it's funny, I'm pleased actually you're touching on Milner. Milner is one of those players actually that I don't usually criticise. I see him as Mr. Dependable. You know, that he has been a fantastic, signing since he joined us. Obviously, we got him obviously for free. James Milner's obviously usually, like I say, very, very dependable. He is a very, very good player.
He's called reliable, for God's sake, but it's just like today he couldn't touch a ball for his life.
No, he couldn't. It was misplaced passes all over the place. Like you say, he seemed sort of. He did. I'd say he almost seemed unable in possession. It was like I don't know, some weird alien force or something odd had taken over him.
That's one way to describe it, but yeah, it's just really, really strange. But I don't know whether you've seen it as well, but we were trying to do that long ball. I mean, Henderson is starting to look like one of those people that can really play I've seen it twice now where he's played that long ball over the top of the defence and it actually lands in someone's feet. This, ironically, was obviously when Salah, he hit it at his heel, which wasn't a great start, but then it came to him. Again, with what you were saying as well with Salah, and I completely agree with that. Salah is not showing the best, but especially with the way I watch the games and things like that. I like to keep the faith as much as possible, and I like to say positive things. But do you know what? It's leaving me at a point where I can barely see what the hell is actually happening.
I totally agree with that. I completely agree with that. I mean, I'm all for giving any player obviously a fair chance, and I mean, Mo Salah, of course. I mean, and no Liverpool fan obviously should forget it. The things that he has done for the football club and the performances that he has put in, not obviously just this season, but obviously last season when he was spectacular. That Mo Salah is a very, very good player. I don't think anybody doubts that, and I don't think anybody obviously should doubt that. I sort of have a look quite often sort of on Twitter. Twitter is the worst place to be when following a Liverpool match, particularly sort of the likes of this game when it's sort of ending 0-0 against Everton, of course. The hatred that you see thrown out by a lot of sort of so-called Liverpool supporters is quite something. It's shocking, really. Considering that, of course, we have only lost one.
That's where it comes from. You can only take so much hatred and so much bad comments. That I wonder whether that's where this has come from. Because let's be honest, Salah is not the player that he was last season, like we've been saying. But again, I mean, he scored 17 goals. I mean that, and we're talking about him being bad. It's just like but it is a case of him not playing as well as he has done in the past. So I mean, it's one of them. But I mean, I still can't believe that somehow he's not quite there. But you can see he's still got similar look like he's going to do something. But it's just one of them.
It is. No, and I completely agree. But what I would say is that obviously, whilst I'm all for obviously giving all players a fair chance, I think at the same time that no player is undroppable. And obviously, at this moment in time, the problem that we're having is that he does look off it. Obviously, he looks off it to the point where maybe he needs a bit of a rest. Maybe he just needs, I don't know, maybe just even a game out or sort of, to come off the bench rather than obviously start, because I think one of the problems that we have is obviously compared to the likes, of course, of Manchester City, is that outside of our front attacking three, obviously Mane, Firmino and Salah, of course, there isn't an awful lot else to come off the bench. There's maybe not enough competition for places. And I think as such, it's difficult almost maybe for the likes of Salah to raise his game, when he is off form. And this creates a problem, really. I mean, don't get me wrong, Divock Origi, of course, obviously did well against Watford. I was kind of surprised to see him named again in the starting lineup against Everton, but of course we know what he did in December against Everton, and the rest is history. So that was obviously that was then. Right now, Divock Origi, for all he's a trier, he's got plenty of effort about him. He is not able to replace the likes of Firmino in the starting 11 and give us the same effectiveness. And that's part of the problem. You look at, again, City, comparing City, that they have all these different options so readily. Essentially, they could maybe field two starting 11s that are both pretty strong, that would fancy winning games. And the problem is that once we change a couple of players in our side, the side's very much weakened. I mean, look at some of the subs today, the likes of Adam Lallana being brought in, who people will be aware that have watched sort of videos that I've done before, state that I think Jurgen Klopp is an admirer of Adam Lallana. I think he does like him, and I think that obviously, had it not have been for injuries and him being made of paper, essentially, that Adam Lallana would maybe have been played more often by Jurgen Klopp, like he did when obviously he first came in. So I think it is clear that he does like Lallana. And again, a lot of the abuse and the hatred on Twitter, people were saying, they were done. They couldn't believe it. The substitutions were a joke. That they were not acceptable. Bringing on Milner, bringing on Lallana when we're trying to win a game, they weren't attacking. There was no creativity. People were describing it as the dreadful all English midfield. So I saw that quite regularly today.
Yeah. Just it's well. I just don't believe why Shaqiri wasn't brought on. I have no words for that, really, to be honest. But I think Shaqiri should have been brought on instead of maybe Milner, because even though it was like for like with Wijnaldum, it's one of those things where you kind of have to have the tenacity to go for it. And as well, with Divock Origi, I heard what the commentators were saying in the game with having 4 attackers up front, because obviously Firmino wasn't 100% today.
No.
That's why Origi got the nod. And that's the only thing I could say to Divock Origi getting the nod over Firmino. But why he doesn't play, Firmino, Origi, Mane, and Salah all in one game when we can't get that all-important goal is beyond me, really, because if we had all 4, especially when Firmino puts in that cross, and Salah and Mane both going for it, and Mane heads it across the box, no one's there.
Yeah,
Firmino's already crossed it. He's across the box. Salah's behind him. Again, communication error, and it's just one of those things where you just like, someone has to be there. Again, with who was it? I think it was Salah when he missed it. It came out to Jordan Henderson, and Everton were throwing themselves at the ball. You could see how bad they wanted to keep us out, and I see these things as well. I see a lot of things from Sport Bible and things like that saying like everyone's behind us.
Yeah.
Everyone's behind the other team, whoever we face. I've seen it for Leicester. I've seen it for Everton saying, please don't let Liverpool win. That's fortunate, because I know that we've become the team that basically take the mick. With a lot of, or we've done a lot in our history, but we've waited a long time for this title, and I think that this is one of the best opportunities that we've had. Obviously, since that dreaded season where I think I almost cried to the certain point of
me 13-14.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Yeah, but it's just that I don't know, because there was a talking point of when we were 7 points clear, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's it." But then we seem to have lost it, and Jamie Carragher came up with quite a pivotal point that I think Liverpool do better when we're behind, and we did, to be fair, when we were behind City, because if you remember the start of the season, they were actually in front of us at the start. We came up then City felt the pressure. So whether that's a thing, but I think that today would have been a pivotal 3-pointer to get us up to points above City. But again, there's pivotal games that they've got to play, as well as ourselves. But we face the likes of Brighton, Cardiff. We do face Tottenham, which City do as well. That's going to be a pivotal game for both teams, and I think whoever, if any of them lose that game, that's where the title's going.
Absolutely. And to be honest, having sort of studied the 9 remaining fixtures that obviously that we have and that City have, I've personally only penciled in a couple of them that are perhaps difficult for City. I penciled in Palace away, Manchester United away as the 2 pivotal ones. I thought that if they got 6 points out of 6 in those 2 games, then I think they'll blow everyone else, aside, perhaps aside from Spurs. But then Spurs are not in any great shape or form at this moment in time. Obviously, that could change. But I look at it really, and I think that Palace away and United away are possibly the 2 most difficult for them. Like I say, if they come away with 6 points, I think it's going to be very, very, very difficult to catch them. I can't see them losing a great deal more points other than possibly in those games, and Spurs, as you've identified. Liverpool, obviously, we've got Chelsea at home, Spurs at home. We've obviously got all of the big, tough away trips, so-called tough away trips. I think perhaps out of the way, Newcastle away is always a little bit of an iffy one. Despite their league position, Newcastle's still a difficult place to go to.
But we'll hopefully have a deal with Rafa Benitez there, though. Hopefully.
Let's say let them roll over and just give us a nice win to help our goal difference. Hopefully, So that's what they need to do. Good old agent Rafa. But yeah, I mean, going back very briefly just to the whole communication side of it that you mentioned, because I actually think that's quite important. I think the communication side on the pitch today was the general theme throughout the 90 minutes. There was a lack of communication. There was sort of misplaced passes galore, sort of bad crosses into the box. None of the sort of your terrific Trent crosses that he had against Watford. Just sort of aimless balls. We seemed almost to get suckered in to Everton's approach, which was very direct, very old school. Long ball football. Everton, to me, they looked inferior all over the pitch, but there were the desperation within them to sort of throw into every last-ditch tackle, the pressing that Everton did, which you don't see often in their games this season. Everton, for me, it was like their World Cup final. They wanted to do everything possible to frustrate and prevent us from scoring. It worked, obviously, for them, very, very successful. They got the 0-0. The celebrations from their stupid fans at the end, like they'd won the game 5-0, was something really to behold. And it does show how much Everton have fallen. Everton were formerly, back in the 80s, our big rivals. It was very much Everton, Liverpool, Everton, as the 2 big teams in the country, and the 2 that were fighting for trophies. Nowadays, Everton are an irrelevance. They're a complete and utter irrelevance. It was quite simply a game today where we were playing a mid-table club for 3 points, and unfortunately, those 3 points never came. And obviously, the single point means a hell of a lot to Everton, and obviously for us, it's great disappointment, which it shows the contrasting attitudes between the 2 clubs, really, and their supporters. But communication in general basically was just off. And would you agree, really, that it's been quite a theme since the turn of the year, particularly away from home?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. But I'd like to say that Matip and especially with Gomez and Oxlade-Chamberlain coming back, because Obviously, I've heard that they are coming back step by step by step. But Matip is doing pivotal. I mean, some of the runs that he's making is quite good. It is quite nice to see that there's someone else there, and I'm so glad that it's not Lovren, because, I mean, put it this way, he's just not made it, Lovren. But I mean, Matip, I mean, we got him on a free as well, which is always a nice thing to see. But again, it's one of those things that I think that partnership has been quite well while Gomez has been healing, especially, and that lets him kind of, make him want to go for it more, especially now knowing that he's got someone to go up against. But I mean, especially whilst you bring up communication as well, there's obviously that press conference thing between Klopp and Silva, where they actually said it being about, Klopp said it's their World Cup final, or they were doing something like a World Cup final. I didn't quite hear what he actually said, and then Silva came back with quite a good comeback, saying Klopp celebrated like it was the World Cup final in the last game, which was, pivotal for us, because it was in the 96th minute, and to be fair, Everton deserved a point there as well. And you know what? I could see it before the game that it Everton are a tough side to beat, when, especially with their own fans, of course, being there.
I think it's the emotion. It's the emotion in the game that's more difficult almost to overcome. It's the emotion, I feel, and the intensity that's in the game. Obviously, in any derby, really, compared to your sort of, your general sort of, top of the table, mid-table clash. With all due respect, obviously, to Everton, it's a case of. I feel like the emotion and the intensity almost overawes players, and there's all this build-up and this hype for any derby game, really, and then they quite often end up being almost like damp squibs, really, and they sort of peter out into nothing games, because neither side really wants to give away the advantage, but at the same time, neither side wants to lose. So it's almost like a game of cat and mouse. Sometimes you almost get that lucky break, like we did in December. In which it was totally fortunate, and we did celebrate, and Jurgen Klopp did celebrate like it won the World Cup. But obviously that was the real turning point for us, and it set us on our way to obviously our great run in December, and beating us throughout December, and obviously set us on to that great run. So sometimes a little bit of luck and that sort of result can drive forward a succession of consecutive results, and it's almost like we were crying out for that today, and obviously that didn't happen, and our form since the beginning of January has been very indifferent. I mean, I think we've had 4 draws in the last 6 games. That's not a good enough record for a side that's pushing for the title, and unfortunately it seems to be on the front foot that obviously that we are losing, that we're sort of losing our ground in games. Speaking very quickly of Silva, I do want to just say that he sort of said obviously that it was our World Cup final. What was he going to say? No, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought now. Jurgen Klopp obviously said it was like a World Cup final for them. It actually made me howl when I saw that press conference. It was quite funny. Obviously, I can understand what he was saying, but I think at the same time, I think we've got to be quite careful going into any sort of game like this. Sometimes when you make comments like Jurgen did, it can fire up the opposition even more. I mean, essentially that's the team talk really done for Everton, that you can put it on the wall and say, here's your World Cup final, basically go out and live it. You mean go out and act out your World Cup final, and obviously essentially stop Liverpool from being able to win the game, which they did well.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? So, should we maybe do player rating?
Yeah, can do.
Well, I'll let you start.
Well, for me, start at the back with Alisson. I'd I'd say 8.5, maybe 9. I mean, with some of his catching, and his overall. I mean, there was nothing that really thoroughly tested him. There was a few worries on occasion where Bernard slid in, but I think 8.5 is quite good because he still kept a clean sheet. He was quite commanding when he needed to be. He obviously slipped at some point when he did the kick, but overall, I think he was quite good.
I would completely agree with that, and personally, also give Alisson an 8.5. Very, very consistent. Obviously, very, very solid. The difference that he has made to the back five in general, Alisson, obviously since signing, obviously in the summer, cannot be overstated. Very, very confident, very assured. Did what was required of him, which wasn't very much, but did it well. Confident in catching. Yeah, absolutely. 8.5. Untroubled, I would say, generally, really throughout this match.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to Trent, obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold. I would personally give him a 7. I think it was okay. He wasn't as effective, of course, as he was against Watford midweek. But I think he had a solid game from perhaps from a defensive point of view. He did give away one silly free kick of note that was just outside our penalty box, and was subsequently booked for it, I believe. It was a bit of a needless, stupid foul, but otherwise, obviously he's young. But otherwise, I think he had quite a solid game.
Yeah, I'd tend to agree with that, and especially when we hear a lot of things about goals from set pieces. We just didn't seem to do anything today in regards to that. So yeah, I was pretty disappointed with that, especially Trent being a homeboy as well. He knows how much this is to the Liverpool fans. But yeah, I tend to agree with a 7, maybe push 7.5. But yeah, I tend to agree with that.
Brilliant. Okay.
And then moving on to Matip or Van Dijk, depending on which way you want to go. But Matip for me, I'd probably give him an 8, maybe 7.5 at least. But I think, as I was pointing out before, Matip's been crucial whilst Gomez has been out. But I think that especially his runs when he makes that little darted run, it's so crucial when he comes out, and he gives that bit of oomph when we need it. It comes out only occasionally, so he doesn't leave Van Dijk by himself. But if you realise Fabinho comes back and then holds his position, and then just holds back there, so I'd certainly say that Matip was an 8.
I would totally agree with that. Personally, I think you basically touched on everything there. I mean, he has been brilliant, really. Matip since of course coming in. Whilst obviously we had a lot of injury crisis. Obviously when he first came in, I think it was a little bit shaky. But I think he's grown and grown and grown, and obviously every match he seems to be getting better and better. He's a perfectly able partner for Virgil van Dijk. And yeah, I think he had a very good performance today. I think an 8, more than fair. I think we generally, I think at the back, we weren't particularly troubled. I think, obviously the defending that we did have to do, I think the defending was done well, really across the board by all 5. As a collective back 5, I think we defended well. It was more sort of in attack addition. So yeah, an 8.
Yeah, and then obviously man of the match, Virgil van Dijk. But just before I go onto his rating, there's so much things that I see, especially on my the group I run in the back end. But it's there's a lot of fans on there that talk about how crucial Virgil van Dijk is, and that's so true. And I see it so many times on Liverpool sites. It's just crazy how how pivotal he is to the Liverpool team, and people that don't know that is they can see that he's Player of the Year. I mean, for anyone that plays like electronic games, like even FIFA themselves gave him, the Team of the Year, which was a big thing for Virgil, and especially like today, I think he was probably 9, maybe 9.5. But I mean, he didn't score or anything like that. But he just controlled everything. Anything that came his way, he got out, and like everyone that's been saying on the group and things like that, he's just a wild class above anyone else, and really that just makes it so much harder for anyone to kind of say he's not going to do anything. But it's just he's so commanding and just so good it's just when we need it, and I just can't say anything bad about him.
No, and I was going to say, and to be honest, I think again you've really sort of hit everything with big Virgil van Dijk. I think I've only really got a few words to sum him up really in general, and I would use sort of Colossus, machine, beast. He is an absolutely fantastic player. He's arguably our best player, I would say. I think he's arguably the best centre back in the world right now. There is nothing else really that you can add about him. He is a fantastic centre back. We're very, very lucky to have him. He's a leader. He's very, very dominant. And commands the area well, alongside obviously Alisson and obviously more recently, of course, Matip. He's just a brilliant player. He had a very, very good game. Won everything in the air. I almost get tired of saying that he won everything in the air, because it takes some doing. I think sometimes it's almost easy to underestimate just how difficult life as a centre back is. And it is. Yeah.
Just sorry, to put in, but like even when a free kick came across, he was standing by himself when Everton took a corner. He was there and he cleared it away. He was by himself and he just came across and just even like Gary Neville even said it, like it's crazy. That used to be how Nemanja Vidic was when United back in the day, and it was just crazy, like, by himself and he just headed out.
Yeah, I was going to say until Torres got his number.
Yeah.
Of course, until Torres tore him apart at Old Trafford. But no, I totally agree with you. Like Vidic was a prime example. You know what I mean? Obviously, of a top class centre back. No, and I was just going to say very quickly to add on, basically that Van Dijk, very much like your rating, I would say a 9. Very, very good. But no, he is terrific, and like you say, the likes of obviously Gary Neville, who's never got a good word to say about us, to praise Van Dijk is merited, really by anybody, and it doesn't take a genius to recognise the value that he adds to our team, the sheer commanding performances that it adds, and defensive solidity that he adds to our team. We just do not look like we're going to get beaten. The problem is winning.
Yeah, that's a big part. Now on to, I believe, like one of the best left backs coming up. Certainly, I mean, he was promoted to Scottish captain. Just proves that how much he's the I think he said a Scottish Braveheart. Klopp said.
Yeah.
And Andy Robertson. I mean, sometimes it's there's no words for him. I'm struggling to say for myself like how good he can be in some games, especially that game against Watford. It's hard to say anything bad about him. Now,
absolutely.
Today, I'm struggling to give him a rating, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I'd certainly say he was probably a 7.5. It's, you could see that Everton were picking that side, especially with Calvert-Lewin and then eventually with Richarlison.
Yeah.
They just knew where to go, and it seemed like they were picking Robbo every time. And it was just like it just wasn't his day, and I just don't know what happened. But I think he's still quite a pivotal player, but it just didn't happen today, and I just don't think it was the right day at the office for Robbo. But any other day, I think he would have had it on the plate. But we all know that he gives it his all.
I would basically agree with that. I mean, how can anybody not love Robbo? First and foremost, he is a very lovable guy. Like he wears his heart on his sleeve. He always gives it his all. He's just a cheeky chap in general. Where you sort of, you listen to some of his interviews. Him and Van Dijk have this real sort of romance going on. He is a terrific player and an absolute steal. Bearing in mind, of course, that obviously when we signed him for sort of £8 million from Hull. I mean, what a bargain that that he has turned out to be. And as you said, sort of Scotland captain, sort of Braveheart Scotland. I agree with you. I agree with your assessment that it wasn't his day today. I think that he was marginally better than Trent, so I would give him 7.5. Obviously, I gave Trent 7. So I would say it was marginally better than Trent this afternoon. But yes, Everton, they did in their tactics. Obviously, Silva, they looked to target Robbo, and I'm quite surprised really, because I would still expect sides in general to target Trent purely because of his age more than anything, and and the fact that he's still young, he's inexperienced still generally. So I would kind of expect people to target Trent over Robbo, but of course Everton went for that ploy today, and obviously it worked to some extent. Obviously Robbo didn't have the best of games, but of course as collectively as a defensive unit, I think we were still pretty solid throughout. So yeah, sort of 7.5 for Robbo. Not his day today.
No. And then we go on to who I believe has been such a. I mean, we said at the near enough the middle of this podcast that a lot of hate goes on around about the players, and especially like the front three and stuff like that. But I heard a lot of things, especially in my in the group and things like that, about Fabinho. Now, me personally today, I'm gonna be a little bit biased here, just because I thought I was actually in Turkey at the time when he got immediately revealed. I was so shocked.
Yeah.
But then it was just today. He made one sloppy pass, and that was when a lot of people must have got angry at him. But apart from that, I didn't see anything wrong with his performance. I'd certainly give him an 8, maybe an 8.5. But because of that sloppy pass, I'd probably lean towards the 8. But I don't know how you feel, but I certainly think Fabinho is going to be a point to prove, and he has proven a lot of points during his time here, and I think he has proved his price tag. Now, I don't believe Keita and Fabinho work as well together, but I think he just worked well today, just picking up a pass. I mean, he picked up that Salah ball, unfortunately, where Salah took his touch too far. But again, it was just, I think Fabinho was maybe at 8.5 today.
Yeah. I mean, we don't really differ too much, to be honest, in our rating. I would probably have sort of erred on the 8 side. I would give him an 8 for Fabinho. He is a very good player. He is a player that actually I really like. And I think that over the last sort of, the last few weeks, probably since before Christmas, I would say that Fabinho is almost sort of, coming to his own. Is almost, coming to his own essentially. Now looks a very, very important player for us. I think it's very clear that this is the player that obviously that Klopp signed. I think it was maybe not as as obvious, in sort of weeks gone past. It took him a little bit of time to adjust to the league, less time than Keita. But now I think that he's a real fantastic defensive midfielder, and a player really that we've been lacking since the likes of Xavier Mascherano and Xabi Alonso left. It's filled really a real void in our side, and again gives us a great deal of not only defensive solidity, I would say, with some of his crunching tackles, but also creativity. He's very able to set attacks going. He looks very confident and comfortable in possession. There was the one misplaced pass that you referred to, which was one of the key reasons why I gave him an 8. Because I think that obviously that the misplaced pass, obviously the area that he lost control of it was obviously quite dangerous, and it sort of set Everton up on an attack. So that's probably my reason. And I've been quite critical of Keita for such silly misplaced passes. So it's not something that you see very often with Fabinho. It took me by surprise. I was quite shocked. So that just shows really the standards that we expect of him. But I would definitely give him an 8. I think he had a good game. Probably the best game in the midfield, personally. Out of our midfield options, I would probably say it's going to be my highest rating.
Okay. I do have a very similar point for Jordan Henderson, because as I said before, there was a lot of passes that we remember as Liverpool fans. I mean, I remember when I think quite a few sources came out and said when Jordan Henderson was signed, he was going to be the next Gerrard. And then obviously he passed the captain's armband, and then you kind of go, oh my God, is that it? And then, he hasn't quite been the Gerrard replacement we thought he'd be. I mean, you saw how he got dropped for the Watford game, obviously, because of how he responded to coming off against United, which I didn't like as the captain point of view. He should be coming off just, generally, because Klopp has to come off, the resolvement of the Kappa situation at Chelsea. Klopp just put him down to earth and said, look, boss, I'm boss. You do what I say. So I very much liked how Klopp put him down on earth and then said, look, like, you're not playing today. I know Klopp does that anyway, just generally moves around the midfield, but I thought that was a main situation for what happened in Watford anyway. But I think Jordan Henderson gave a good few passes over the wall of the Everton defence. He did that one crucial one that came to Salah and then he missed it. But it's certainly a, I think, 7.5, maybe 8 push. But it's I thought it was a good performance by Jordan, but just wasn't good enough to turn a game, and that's where the midfield comes into criticism, because they need to up the tempo sometimes, and they need to help that front three on occasion, because it's easy to point out, especially when it's a 0-0 situation, where you blame the front three, which of course you can do, but sometimes that midfield can come into light and just help out the situation, like Coutinho used to do, things like that. But I think there's certainly a point there, but 7.5 for Henderson for me.
Okay. I mean, I don't think we're too far off in terms of rating of Henderson. I would personally give Jordan a 7. I think I'm going to be blunt, to be honest, and I'm going to sort of say outright that I genuinely wish that whether or not they are genuine Liverpool fans or so-called Liverpool fans would get the fuck off Henderson's back. The criticism, the disgusting, nasty, vile comments that I saw written all over Twitter this afternoon were something else. Comments like his family should die, he should die, he's not our he shouldn't be our captain, Virgil van Dijk should be our captain. I think it's absolutely a joke, really. That's first and foremost, I think, the only way I could describe that. Jordan Henderson obviously is, again, one of those players that is, if nothing else, consistent. He doesn't have the greatest flair set maybe in the world, the greatest skill set in the world. The funny thing is, I think that obviously when Kenny Dalglish brought him, obviously from Sunderland, he was seen sort of by Liverpool fans as this replacement for Steven Gerrard, as you've sort of touched on. But I don't think that he ever was. And the thing is, when you assess Jordan's game, his game actually is not that similar to Steven Gerrard's. He's not the attacking midfielder that Steven Gerrard was, and there's very few players really that will or have reached Steven Gerrard's level. Jordan Henderson. I think to expect Jordan Henderson to be Steven Gerrard was highly unrealistic from a hell of a lot of fans. And that one particular pass that obviously you referred to, obviously over to Salah this afternoon was world class. It cannot really be overstated. Again, just what a world class pass that was. It was exceptional, and Salah should have scored. I mean, there's no two ways about it. I mean, the error was on Salah's part this afternoon. Obviously, had he have scored, everybody would have also been lauding up Jordan Henderson. He's fantastic, brilliant performance by Jordan Henderson, and everything else. But obviously, we drew the game, so there's a lot of hatred going around as well for Jordan Henderson, and that he should not get near the starting 11 again. And actually, it really angers me because he's a player I've always personally liked. Like I said, he's possibly not the most gifted player in the world, but he cares. He's passionate. He is our captain, whether people like it or they don't, and people can slate me all they like. I'm open to the slating and the criticism. I want people to leave their comments below and to sort of provide feedback, because I'm quite open to the idea of debate and sort of exploring that side of it. And I think that's what we should sort of use this as. That people are quite entitled to disagree with me. But no, and I could rant on, so I won't. But he is our captain. People should respect that. Jurgen Klopp picks the team. Obviously, he's kept Jordan Henderson as our captain. That should be respected. And people should simply get off his back. I would rate him, like I say, a 7. I think that his performance wasn't that bad. I think it was okay. It was probably as good as generally as the rest of our midfield. And in general, obviously, we had an off day, but obviously his performance against Bayern was exemplary. I mean, it was fantastic. And just touching also very quickly on what you said about Fabinho, I know that we're sort of just drifting back to him. I just wanted to say when you sort of referred to the whole Fabinho, and I think it's Akita not working together. I think the idea when obviously they came in, Klopp has tried to play them in almost a double pivot a few times, and it definitely hasn't worked. So I just wanted to also say, that I also don't think that worked or hasn't worked up to now. But yeah, Jordan Henderson, basically, I think people should just get off his back, and if we support, if maybe we spent more time on supporting Jordan Henderson than sort of slating him, then maybe his performances would improve, or maybe the team in general would improve.
Yeah, it's so sad to see. Like I see similar criticism on as I've referred to a number of times. And sorry, I keep going back to it, but like I own a Liverpool group myself on Facebook, and I see a lot of criticism when I post like the lineup that's been released, obviously by Klopp himself and by the Liverpool team. Yeah. And then get a lot of comments that say like, "Oh, why that again? Why it's so defensive? There's no why is Origi starting?" And you just gotta go with it. Now just to move things along a little bit, I think Wijnaldum 6.5. It just wasn't his day. I just don't think he had enough time maybe on the pitch, but I think he needed to come off anyway as part of that. But it's one of those things. But I just don't think it was Wijnaldum's day at all.
No, basically, I would just agree with that. It's going to maybe sound a little bit harsh. I will also agree with the sort of 6.5 rating. I would totally agree with that. So that's my rating as well. I would describe him today, and I rate Wijnaldum very, very highly, and people will know that. He sort of very much often goes unnoticed as this sort of, this workhorse, real fantastic grit and determination. And he is usually for me one of our better players, particularly in midfield. But today I would describe him as largely anonymous, and not in a good way. And I think, unfortunately for him today, it just wasn't his day, as you said. Basically, there's not really an awful lot else to add on that one. So 6.5 for Wijnaldum.
Yeah. And then moving on to perhaps the talking point of the afternoon.
Another hour.
I mean, I presume there's going to be a lot of comments about the Jordan Henderson thing, but this might be another one. Salah, I'm going to say 7, maybe 7.5. He got into a lot of situations, but for me, he was not critical enough. He couldn't finish. I don't know whether it is that Ramos situation again, where he just thinks he might get injured. Obviously, where he came off in the Champions League final, didn't look good. Again, it nearly made me cry because I know how much he wanted it. I know how much we wanted it as fans. But again, ever since then, he hasn't looked like the player he was last season. But again, it's crazy to think that he scored 17 goals and still we're criticising him. But I'd say 7, maybe 7.5 at a push.
I think you're very kind, and I think that I'm going to play sort of devil's advocate, or I'm going to be seen as, I think, this bad guy. I'm a bad guy that everyone come after, I think, on this one. Salah gets a 4 from me. I think that 4 is quite kind. I'm going to be brutally honest. Salah, obviously, like you say, and I do want to touch on that obviously he has scored 17 goals this season. I am not in any which way, shape or form saying that Salah is a bad player. Salah is a fantastic player. The things that he has obviously done in this last season and, season and 2/3 has been nothing short of obviously sensational. So I'm not going to obviously tear him down as a player. Today, I think, was a very, very, very bad day for Mo Salah. I think he was off it virtually from the start, looked tired, lethargic. I mean, we've done these training camps, these winter training camps, and frankly, they seem useless because they have not in any way seemed to improve the fitness of a few of our guys. Mo Salah looked one of those today that was jaded. His first touch was poor, to be kind. And I'm afraid, I think, unfortunately, I think probably one of the big points that's really knocked his his score down, and it probably is harsh. So I would be very interested in getting everybody else's views. So please comment, and criticise if you like. But that pass was brilliant from Jordan Henderson. It laid him, it was laid on a plate for Salah, and his first touch simply was not good enough. And I think the theme generally was obviously throughout the afternoon was that his touch let him down. I think that he was a threat. Still, he was a bit of a nuisance, a bit of a menace, but he wasn't the unplayable Salah that we saw against Watford. We can't obviously expect him to do that, necessarily in every game. But I think we really needed Salah to show up today. We really did, in order to to sort of have a real good go at Everton and to sort of to pose a real attacking threat. We really needed Mo Salah to sort of be firing on all cylinders. Nearly said cylinders. And it just wasn't his day. Absolutely nothing against him, but I think that a 4 is. I think a 4 reflects just maybe what I expect of Salah, and his performances essentially, dictate that I expect a lot more than what I saw this afternoon. Really based on previous. So I think 4 for me. Haters gonna hate.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, my eyes was just like open, just like what? But I mean, I personally don't like hearing four, but it's one of those things that everyone has their own opinion. But I think four might be a bit too harsh. But
It
I mean,
creates discussion, though, doesn't it? That gives people something to click onto and to be like, what?
yeah, just like, oh yeah, Salah's a four. What? Yeah.
Well,
I
honestly,
do agree. He wasn't on his game, and he hasn't been in the big games. So like Bayern, Man United, similar things like that. And yeah, he hasn't been. He hasn't been. But I generally think that maybe he was a 6 today. Maybe 6.5 because he missed so many good chances. He could have had a hat trick before then the half time, and we would have been praising him till the gods earth.
absolutely.
But we're not. So yeah, one of them.
I mean, I would actually say, though, just very quickly, that obviously if anybody wants to sort of take me to task or wants to question my opinion or to challenge it, it would be quite nice. Like, I would welcome people to do that. And then if they do, obviously, if you comment or whatnot, obviously on the group, then I will be more than happy to respond to any comments and to sort of to justify my reasoning for my 4 grade. In greater depth, I would be more than happy to sort of to comment and to justify that further. But yeah, okay.
For me, with what's his name?
Mane.
Or Mane. So we'll go for Mane first because he was striker. I still don't get why he's taken off, but I'm just going to move on swiftly. I think maybe he wasn't on point as much as he was on Watford. You've seen that he was trying to make a cause for himself and he just wasn't quite getting there. Maybe that's why Klopp took him off in the end. He just wasn't being the right player he was. With the way I'm going with this, I personally think he was a 6, maybe 6.5 at most. But I mean, with his performance, it just wasn't clicking for him. And I think that's as much as I can say about Mane.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've not really got a lot to say on Mane either. Really, he obviously wasn't as effective against Everton today as he was against Watford. I think obviously he had a very good performance against Watford. I don't think he by any means had a particularly bad performance today. I think he was a little bit selfish at times. In possession, maybe made the wrong decision.
Always.
Well, yeah. As obviously, yeah, he is always. To be honest, he's a pretty selfish player, of course. But no, obviously his goal scoring, form recently has been good. I would probably rate him 6 for his performance. I would also add should not have been taken off. It was a decision as well that I really disagreed with. But I won't really go into it anymore because I might explode. I really did disagree with this particular decision. I was unhappy and I felt like almost we were throwing the game when he came off. It was more for the fact that it wasn't a like-for-like replacement, and that obviously he was replaced for Lallana. So it did upset me a little bit, the fact that obviously he was replaced essentially for a winger, a midfielder.
Yeah.
I'd say
a little bit is an understatement.
I
If I was watching it on my phone, I virtually would have threw my phone across the room. That's what I'd go to say. I mean, no disrespect to Lallana at all, but I would have personally loved to have seen Shaqiri. As I briefly mentioned, of course, that man who left us to go to the blue and red stripes, which I absolutely hated him for. And now he's not even making a statement himself, which do you know what? I'm so glad he isn't. Now, of course, there's rumours that he's coming back to Chelsea or Manchester United, which I think is a load of bollocks. But up on just topic, I thought Shaqiri should have come on. I mean, you seen the bench. I mean, come on. that attacking bench if I've ever seen one. There was no centre back. There was no macho like in previous games. There was no defence as far as I could see on the bench. We all know Fabinho can do a job at centre back, but when is Klopp ever going to go really defensive like that? I could see that he was clearly going for the win or whatever, but it just frustrated me that Shaqiri didn't come on, especially when Mane came off, and I was just shocked beyond belief that it was Lallana. No disrespect to him again, but I just think it was the wrong decision. I know Lallana had that scoop turn against West Ham, I want to say. Yeah, I think it was. And, wrongly, it was... rightly, it was given. It wasn't given offside. Didn't know how to word that one. But it was. He can be magical at times, but maybe that's where we are missing that magical magician midfielder, which I believe that in regards to the Fekir situation, we, of course, we did maybe just breach out because he did have a knee injury. And maybe he saw his contract ending soon, because I know his contract was ending soon, I think, maybe next year. Maybe that was the point he was trying to get across, either spend 50 million or zero. A lot of these people do move on free transfers, like Aaron Ramsay, which I believe we should have really gone in for. And
I agree with that.
Well, which is also one that has been linked with us highly, because apparently he likes that field, which is a good thing as far as I can see.
And of course, Werner as well.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, what happened there? But again, I just don't believe why Mane got took off in the end. But it's just one of those things that I just furious about, really.
Likewise, I thought it was a poor decision, but I think as well, just touching on obviously what you said with regards to sort of Nabil Fekir, and sort of almost that creative spark, and I think that is something that sort of maybe earlier in the season we didn't sort of seem to miss that too much, but I think that sort of as the season's gone on, and sort of sides have sort of adapted how they play against us almost a little bit. Not saying that they've worked us out, but they certainly sort of try to press us more. They certainly try to sort of harry us, sort of rush us more. And I think that creative spark, obviously, is an issue. It's an ongoing issue. And I think it will no doubt, undoubtedly be addressed in the summer. I think that's clear. I think perhaps this is almost, a season too early, almost too soon. Where obviously we're pushing for the title. We are missing that creative spark, and who knows, that could end up being our undoing. But time will tell. But anyhow, obviously that's moving forward. But obviously, Mane should not really have been taken off.
No.
What about Origi?
Origi, I never really have any criticism for Divock Origi, because he never really plays.
No.
But I mean, it's one of those things where I'm just like, how do I word this? But you could see again, he went for the same type of shot that he did against Watford. He cut inside, had a look at that near post. By all means, go for it. If you see a chance, by all means, I don't care if you're snatching it, if you magically hit it over, at least he's having a go. But I mean, he didn't magically play well. As I touched on before, I think Klopp should have left him on and leave that 4 midfield up. Sorry, that 4 attacking up, and then he has a lot of chances to kind of go on, especially when Mane headed across. I was just like, who's there? Who's going to do it? No one did. But, I mean, I'd say maybe Origi 6, maybe 6.5, even though I've kind of said it was a good, but, it's just one of them.
I would personally say for Origi, I mean, I would personally say a 5. I think it was okay. Again, he was okay. I think the problem is, I think generally, as obviously as an attacking force today, we weren't at it. So I think, we sort of, I know I'm throwing out some very low marks for the attacking, for the attacking players, but Origi, what can I say? Tried hard, tries hard. Is the he's a workhorse. Um, what he lacks in skill, I think he makes up for in effort and determination, and I think that's something that will always be commended and applauded at Liverpool, and it should be. I like him. I like him as a player. Like I said, I don't think he's the most skilled or gifted. He was supposed to be obviously, when obviously he signed, he was seen as, as this talent, this real talent. But I don't think obviously we've been able to see an awful lot of it, probably because obviously he doesn't really get in the team. Of course, with the front three, obviously that we have, he's not likely to get into the team, but obviously that's an issue. But no, I think he tried, but obviously it just again really wasn't his day. Collectively, the front three were awful, really. To be blunt, I mean, we didn't really trouble Jordan Pickford an awful lot in the Everton goal. I think there was about 2 shots on target. It was useless, really, to be blunt. Just a lack of snapshots. The game was crying out for someone just to hit it, just to have a hit, and just to actually test the goalkeeper. And there was none of it. There was too much direct football, long ball. Again, I feel like Everton sort of suckered us into that. There wasn't enough patience. And I think at times, though, in the final third, there was almost too much patience because we were hesitant in possession. There was nothing really in the way of creative attacking play, and I think that moving forward, this is a real issue that needs ironing out. It needs solving because right now, like I said sort of earlier and touched on earlier, we don't look like being beaten, but we also don't look like winning, and this is a big problem because, of course, back in 2008-9 season, obviously when we finished as runners-up, we lost only 2 matches all season. We lost 2 matches in the Premier League all season, and that was the first time that a side had only lost 2 matches of a 38 game Premier League season and failed to go on to win the title. And right now, I would argue that it's a very, very distinct possibility that we could be the first side to lose 1 game all season and fail to win the title because we are drawing too many games, and the attacking wise, I think the potency has gone. I think we need to strip it back down to basics, and we need to work out some creative moves, creative free flowing football, and get back to what we were. And I think unfortunately, it's a case of, is the initiative with City, have we given it all that we've got essentially, and is there any coming back from this? And this is something that Klopp has got to really work hard to address, over the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I got nothing to say on that. It just I'm still virtually shocked by us just not being able to capitalise on the situation, but just so annoyed.
Yeah. So to sort of wrap up as well, I was going to say, to try to sort of wrap it up a little bit, I was thinking we could maybe just talk a little bit about sort of where we go from here moving forward, and also just very briefly about Jurgen Klopp's press conference, obviously after the game, in which obviously he was quite critical of the wind at Goodison Park, and essentially really cited it as a reason for us drawing the game. Would you like to start?
I'll start on the wind, maybe. But I don't know what. I mean, there's many things. I mean, I watched after the game just to see what kind of thing was going on, what he was going to say to that situation and to why we actually didn't do as well as maybe we should have done. And I just think there wasn't any way that he could potentially say, "Oh yeah, it was that, we didn't do well." And you know, I was quite shocked to see he wasn't like taking it upon himself to just say, "Yeah, it was me," because you see a lot of people take the responsibility for the decisions and into regards to the actual part of the game, and a lot of the managers generally say, "Yeah, it's my fault," but I mean, the wind has got nothing to do with it, in my opinion. You know, as you know, the wind is there, obviously, but you know, the ball's on the pitch. You go at it, and you just try your best. You don't say, "Oh yeah, we drawn because of the wind." That's
No.
Yeah, it's just that's so petty. It's so. I'm actually struggling to say why. It's embarrassing to say that, you know, a manager. I mean, after the game, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but David Moyes was there, and they asked, "Was that a tactic to kind of say, you know, this is why?" And he was like, "It's not really a tactic. It's one of those things that you kind of just generally say." And
So yeah, absolutely. You can't control it. You can't. And I was just going to say there, it's funny because when I actually saw it, I'm not going to lie. I mean, the thing is, I love Jurgen Klopp to bits. He's an absolutely fantastic manager. The work, you know, the sort of where he's taken us from and to, can never ever be can never be underestimated. He's a fantastic manager, real charisma, just generally charismatic, a real character, and someone that's very very passionate and clearly cares about the football club. He's very much, I think, sort of his ethos and the way that he carries on in general. It's like he gets the football club. It's like he's part of the fabric of the football club. But press conferences like that one this afternoon, I mean, whilst I was watching it, I was laughing myself. And that's the thing. And the thing is that that's my, that's our manager. You know, that's obviously my football club's manager. And I was sat laughing at the shocking press conference that he gave. Right. I think the thing is, we've had a few of these, talking about the grass being too long at Manchester City, talking about sort of the wind, Snowgate, stuff like that. It's no good. It's no good. We can't talk about things that are essentially beyond anybody's control. A bit of wind, it was the same for both sides. You didn't hear Silva coming out with this sort of, lame excuses as to why essentially, the perfect football match could not be carried out. Wind is one of those things. You're going to get it. We're in early March. This is just normal. And I just wish, and I was almost hoping that he was going to go to his press conference today, and he was going to say, "Look, the performance wasn't great. It wasn't, it wasn't our best performance. It wasn't our best moment. We can do better. We need to do better. And obviously in coming games, we will do better." And that's all I think a lot of Liverpool fans wanted. That performance today simply wasn't good enough. It wasn't in any way, shape or form. It was a poor performance. And I think sometimes I would just appreciate a little bit of brutal honesty. And this is what I used to love, actually, funnily enough, with Kenny Dalglish. And even Rafa, again, they could be so essentially honest in press conferences. And then, of course, you had the likes of Brendan Rodgers. We showed a great deal of character. Character was his favourite word. And that wore very, very thin. And unfortunately, I think it's almost the same here. That, Jurgen Klopp, obviously, he's blaming the weather. He's blaming sort of grassland, wet pitches, dry pitches. It's no good. And I think at the end of the day, obviously, we just need to focus on ourselves. And frankly, really, it just was not good enough. The performance wasn't good enough. All we wanted, like I say, is just hold your hand up, Jurgen, and say, you know what? That performance was poor. I take responsibility. I don't want to blame my players because obviously he doesn't like to publicly criticise players, and I agree with that. But he should say, the performance wasn't great. I take responsibility. Better luck next time. That's really all he had to say. But no. So it was feeble, really. It was embarrassing and cringeworthy, and it makes us look stupid. Really, it makes us look like absolute fools. You know, because no Liverpool fan is going to be thinking we haven't won today because of the win. There is not a single Liverpool fan around the globe that will be sat there right now, or if you're listening to this, saying, yes, we failed to beat Everton because of the wind. No, no, quite simply, no. But hey ho.
That's what the bosses said, so we'll go with it.
We'll go with it. That's fine. That's fine. We let's hope there's no wind. Against Burnley.
Yeah.
I hope so. Maybe we'll consider putting a roof on Anfield. Keep the wind out.
So what was the second thing you wanted to talk about?
Well, the final thing was essentially, where do we go from here? Suggestions. And also to anybody that's watching, anybody in the group, obviously, if you just as well very briefly want to advertise your group in a moment, and so forth as well. Any discussion, any proactive discussion would be really, really great. We essentially want your suggestions on where we go from here, what we do, what changes do we make, if any, how do we go about just generally improving our away performances? Because I think that our issues at Anfield are not particularly prominent. Yeah. Anyhow, if you want to fire it away, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. So I mean, where we go from here, I think there's a very there's no way we can change it. There's no way we can say, oh yeah, we'll get that in, we'll do that, because essentially, everything's been done now. We need to get there. We need to do the job, and we need to do it fast. Because let's be brutally honest, it's coming to a point at the season where you need to be aggressive. You need to be taking the chances. And frankly, it just didn't seem like we were at the office today. Now, I personally think it should have been Salah to get the goal. But I mean, from then on, if we don't win the league, again, it's one of those questions: is Klopp really thinking of doing it? Because there'll be a lot of questions where people are saying he's got us into the same situation where we've got into a final. We went to the Europa League final, lost. Champions League final, lost. I think he was with the Carabao Cup as well, lost.
Correct. Yep, against City. That was there.
It's one of those things. Like, is it that final push that we're missing out on? I think that personally, I've heard a lot of rumours that in the summer we'll be looking for centre backs. We'll be looking for. I personally don't feel Klopp will go out in the summer and say we need a new midfielder. I personally don't think that, because he's just brought in Fabinho and Keita. But I personally feel that we need to sign Fekir or someone of his quality. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. I know that people are saying no to this, but even if Coutinho does come back, I'd much prefer him to come back to Anfield and prove him again, rather than go to United or Chelsea. I'd much rather him come back and prove a point that he actually cares and actually wants to play football. Because let's be honest, he hasn't made it at the new camp, and I think he'll probably want to if he does come back. But I heard a lot of things from ex-Liverpool legend Danny Murphy that Liverpool fans virtually hate his guts now, which is right, because he left us in quite a pivotal fashion where he's just saying, "Oh, my back hurts," or that, or this, or that, and it was such a shame, because he was such a good player, and it was one of those players that you could just pick up and just say, "That is our player." We need that, and that's what sometimes Keita can be that. So frustrating because it's not happening. It's one of those things, because I think Fabinho is great. I think Keita on occasion can be great. Against Bournemouth, it was fantastic. it just, it's not there. And whether it's not our season this season, it pushes on, hopefully, by next season, because I don't think this is. I think there's a certain degree of where we go from here and what happens next. In regards to Klopp, I don't think he's done. A lot of people have said Klopp out, and I'm so one of those people that just says, "What on earth are you talking about?" Like, you cannot say that Klopp has been absolutely pivotal to us in
correct
in situations, and in regards to my group, called Liverpool FC fans, and anyone hearing this is much more willing to join in the conversations, because we do appreciate anything that is generally said on there, as well as just general posts, and making sure that everything's great. A lot of things on there are quite sometimes negative. We do appreciate that. We do appreciate that a lot of things come the way of Liverpool, and anyone that acts for Liverpool is going to be in the firing line, which I have been. A lot of people have been saying, "Oh, can you give us a trial?" And sorry, I didn't realise I was a board member, but yeah, I'll get you in. But it's one of those things where you just don't know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. This season, I certainly wasn't expecting this. I wasn't expecting to be up by 10 points. I wasn't expecting to be 7 points clear. I wasn't expecting to be 1 point away from Man City. I was expecting top 4 finish, maybe second, and Man City clearing again, because I watched the documentary that they did, and Pep looks so in control, and so I mean, let's be honest, they've got a lot more money to spend than maybe we do, and it's such a nice feeling when you hear Man City. They wanted Van Dijk so much, but he wanted to come to Liverpool. Admittedly, we should have got him before Southampton got him, so we didn't have this embarrassing story of how many players do you want from Southampton.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that I think we have to get someone in that just knows how to work the midfield, because Keita can be great. Fabinho is there, but they can't play together. It's one of those things that just doesn't work. Maybe that will work in the future. And in regards to what you talked to before, the training camps, they haven't worked. But I mean, we're gonna get Oxlade-Chamberlain back. He's playing this week for the under-23s. Perfect. That is one of those players that I am so happy is back.
Like, oh, I am. Can't wait, mate.
I mean,
literally,
it's one of those things. I think he could be Coutinho-esque. If he comes in, if he plays, if he manages to get over that ACL and proves that is not a pivotal point to his career, oh my God. If he can do something like he did against City in that Champions League game, oh my word, we are in for one hell of a... And can I just say, what a run this has been for both City and Liverpool. It's such a captivating, that season where, Aguero put in that magnificent goal. You can't deny it. It was one of those things that you've just got to take in, and you will probably never see anything like it again. I mean, this is a two-way title race. Tottenham, for me, they're playing for top 4 now. They are playing for top 4.
Yeah.
There's nothing on for them, as far as I'm aware. I think there's more to develop in our game. Salah needs to have his head up, but we just need to go again. And I think that's where I'll leave it and let you take over.
Okay. Well, to be honest, I think you've kind of, again, you've sort of covered an awful lot, to be honest. We're sort of moving forward. So I am sort of conscious of just how long this video is running, nearly an hour and a half. So I will try to keep it as brief as possible. I firstly want to say that to any Liverpool fan, and certainly I've seen a lot of it there, and I know I keep referring sort of back to, but I think Twitter it's a prime example, like Facebook and obviously Facebook groups and pages and whatnot. It is a prime example where sort of you get all your keyboard warriors, so everybody comes out and most of what people have to say is negative. But so many people were saying, obviously, at full time this afternoon, bye-bye title, the title's over, we've lost it, we're bottlers, Liverpool bottle jobs, this, that and the other. And these are Liverpool fans. I mean, I was double-checking my sort of viewing different people's, Twitter pages and things like that. And I just thought, you're not really Liverpool fans. The problem is, it's all well and good saying, the title's lost. Well, actually, it's incorrect. The title was not won today, and the title certainly wasn't lost today. We are 1 point behind City with 27 left to play for. So the title, mathematically, certainly has not been lost. So I think that people sort of need a bit of a reality check. I think a second point, really, for some of those fans in particular that sort of made those claims, it's worth remembering that last season we finished 24 points behind Manchester City. 24 points. That is a huge, huge gap. And anybody that thinks otherwise, is deluded, frankly. 24 points. Realistically, sides do not bridge a 24-point gap the following season. It just doesn't happen. Go through, obviously, previous seasons in the Premier League. It doesn't happen. That's a massive gap. And I think to sort of get to this stage of the season where we are, 1 point behind City, it's a sign of massive, massive progress. And I personally, I'm going to be a little bit, I'm sort of a glass half full kind of guy. And I look at it this way. It's frustrating. It's disappointing that we sort of gone from, sort of a 7-point lead down to obviously trailing City by 1. I feel like we will do better chasing, believe it or not. Some people might criticise that, and that's fine, and people can leave the comments. But I think in terms of pressure, I think we'll do better chasing. Not only that, but I also want to say that if we don't win the title, for some people it will be doom and gloom. It will be, and it will be for me, and I'll be frustrated and I'll be disappointed because I've never in my lifetime, obviously I'm 27 years old, I've never seen Liverpool win the title. And obviously that's something that we all really, really want. But I just feel at the back of my mind, like I have done, if it hadn't been for December, obviously that unbeaten month in December, obviously and all those wins, that this is a season too soon for us. I feel like you look at Liverpool, obviously our squad, you look at City's squad, and they've got virtually two teams, two starting lineups essentially. They've got the depth of the squad and the like-for-like replacement to enable them to win games readily and easily. When you get past our starting 11, we have very few match winners to change or to sort of slot into the side and to enable us to continue on winning. And this is ultimately, I think, where the title might be won and lost. I firmly believe that we can win the title, and I believe that we've got to continue as we have done throughout the season. But obviously, there is attention to details that perhaps need looking at in terms of our attacking play. But there's no easy fix. At the end of the day, we've got our squad. You can't, magic anything else into that. We do have obviously Ops coming back, and who knows? That could be like he could essentially be like a new signing if he comes back from his ACL, like you said, and he slots back in and he hits the ground running. Then we could have a brilliant end to the season, and that is the hope, and that's what I really, really genuinely hope for. But to those that say if we fail to win the title, Klopp out, well, I would like anybody that feels like that to certainly comment and to argue with me, because I will argue with you all night. Jurgen Klopp has transformed the fortunes of our football club. He is, a fantastic ambassador for the football club. I cannot speak more highly of Jurgen. Anybody that's so fickle to forget that we were 24 points behind City last season and to state that this is not progress, this season, whether or not we lose the title by 1 or 2 points, or whether or not we actually have to win the title, in which nobody will be saying anything. Obviously, if we do lose the title by, say, 1 or 2 points, for example, and you believe that that should mean that Klopp should leave, then maybe you should find another football club to support, or you should actually find reason and way to justify that opinion. Because it seems quite common that people will say this, will come out with this sort of idea. But it begs the question, how much do you know about football? Because this is, we're not Chelsea. We're not clubs that rotate and revolve football managers, managers out the door, and we'll just hire another one, like a bus. You miss one bus and two come along at once, or whatever. It's not like that. And Jurgen, I'm very, very pleased. I feel very, very proud to have him as our manager. I think we're very, very lucky to have him as our manager, no matter what the outcome is, obviously, at the end of the season. And obviously, all we've got to do, I think, from here is just hope and pray that the boys in the last 9 games deliver, and if they deliver, all we can do is focus on our own games. But if we deliver how we can, there are, aside from Chelsea and Spurs, I would say no particularly unwinnable games, difficult as such games left for us. Who knows? Who knows? But the title hasn't been won today. The title has not been lost today. People need to keep the faith. They need to be more positive, and just get behind the lads. If you can't get behind us when we win, lose, or whether we win, lose, or draw, don't bother. Don't bother, because we don't need you. It's as simple as that. That's about it, really.
Yeah.
We'll end it on a We'll end it on a positive note and say, everybody, leave all your leave all your comments and your feedback below. What could we do better? Obviously it's sort of a work in progress. Videos should never be this long. At 90 minutes, no one will probably watch this to the end, or you probably have died or fallen asleep if you do manage to make it to the end. But yeah, essentially we'll look to sort of amend this, change it, and alter it up and do different things. You'll find links to the Facebook, obviously, group below, Facebook pages, etc. Obviously, the channel. Obviously, please subscribe. Obviously, the YouTube channel. Obviously, if you're watching us on there. Obviously, you'll also see links throughout. Obviously, the videos that have been uploaded. So yeah, thank you for watching, and thank you for joining me as well.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. Right. Well, on to the next one. Burnley. It's Burnley, isn't it? Before when's Bayern? After it.
Yeah, it's all mixed in, but it's one of them. But on to the next one. You'll never walk alone.
You'll never walk alone.